West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
We're back with Jake Comanduri and Governor Mark Sanford. His new book, Two Roads Diverge, A Second Chance for the Republican Party, the Conservative Movement, the Nation, and Ourselves, is out now. You can see it there on the screen. We'll get to all those ideas, but Che, having quoted you, I wanted to begin with your point that we can't understand the depths of our science and vaccine misinformation in America today without understanding the Republican Party's crusade for some time now. Explain.
Yeah, it's put it very simply. They don't believe in vaccines the same way they don't believe in climate science, same way they don't believe in evolution, the same way they don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, the same way they don't believe in stem cell research. However, they do believe in the claims of fossil fuel executives. They do believe in all the vitamin and health supplements that Alex Jones regularly hawks on his TV channel or YouTube channel or whatever platform he happens to be on right now. They do certainly believe in those things. And we have to understand that uncertainty is codified in science through the peer review research method that is used by major universities to establish scientific truths. Science is based on probability, it's based on ground. However, the GOP historically, and they've been doing it for over 30 years, going back to Ronald Reagan, has been using that very element of science against science and in favor of GOP interests.
Yeah, you say it that way, and it's very similar to some of the sound we just played from Carlson and Ingram, which, if you want to be charitable, you could say that some of the points are technically in the ballpark, but they really make a drumbeat that's misleading because it implies that the fact that scientists are updating their information through a process is itself an indictment of the science. As you just said, it's not. Governor, we wanted to bring you into this because you've been in the party, but you've also been a truth teller at times. And shout out to your new book. Reading just a quote from it, you say, even before Trump got to Washington, the conservative movement, in your view, you write, represented by the Republican Party, had devolved into a lukewarm mess. Your views on all the above?
Well, we'll come back to lukewarm mess. I mean, respectfully, I disagree with the points just made because I think that the favorite word in politics these days is they, and they. And I don't think that going back to the notion of science and sort of Socratic process is fair. I think that there are absolutely elements of the Republican Party that are Neanderthal as it relates to science. But there are a number of us, I've said for a long time, I was a Republican, in elected office for roughly a 25-year span, that I did believe in science, that I did believe in climate change. It was real. The coastal district that I represent along the coast of South Carolina, I saw it with my own eyes. And I said, there's something unfathomable to me that some in the Republican Party would say, I believe in the miracles of modern science in healing my body, notwithstanding the vaccination debate, but I don't believe in it as it relates to Mother Earth. So I think it's a bit simplistic to say, quote, the Republican Party does not believe in science. I would say there are absolute elements that don't. And shame on those of us who haven't pushed harder and louder against those elements, because I don't think they represent a broad swath of the people that I represented, whether along the coast of South Carolina or in the state as a whole.
Do you think, Governor, to your point, that the thrust of the anti-vaccine arguments, and I mentioned it's not monolithic, in my setup, because I actually reporting that, the former president himself said get vaccinated, which is different from what some other folks were saying with regard to the science. But do you think that the bulk of the anti-vax sentiment on the right is good faith, by which I mean earnestly held beliefs about people's reservations, or does it concern you that some of it seems to be a kind of a political project?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think that there is a natural wariness against authority on the right. I mean, part of the independence movement, freedom movement is, again, a skittishness about, because they said so, and there's automatic reaction, well, because you said so, then I'm against it, which is its own sort of thinking, but that is part of the assembly that makes up the Republican Party. And then part of it is based on all the misinformation that's out there. I mean, people that are not necessarily suspicious, but because they have a faith in this sort of tribalism that is all too strong in both parties right now. Well, there's suspicion at the top, then it must be good enough for me. Initially Trump wasn't exactly a warrior with regard to vaccines and vaccinations. I happen to be a fan. I had the vaccinations, but then I got COVID and it really sucked. And my boys are young and strong and they got it and they were out surfing the next day. I was down and about for about 2 weeks. I never slept as much in my life. But I just think it's a combination of the weird tribalism that is real within the Trump movement and the party right now, combined with the natural suspicion of somebody at the top saying so.
Check.
Well, look, I would respectfully disagree with the governor on this. I do think that climate change denial, there were exceptions like John McCain, I think we all remember. But for the most part, the entire Republican establishment, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty indisputable, we're very much into climate change denial. And if you believe, let's be very clear, climate change denial is a conspiracy theory. It is a belief that the world scientific community is lying to you, and a group of fossil fuel executives with little scientific training are telling you the truth. It's a short leap from that to believe that the world's medical community is lying to you about vaccines, and Alex Jones is telling you the truth. Climate change denial really, I think, got the ball rolling. But I do also believe that the Republican establishment, with their alliance with the religious right which really believed, that science was an enemy of faith, not an ally of faith, the way scientists from Isaac Newton to Werner Heisenberg believed, but an enemy of faith, that really did open the door to a lot of this thinking. And we see this around the world. If you look at Brazil and India, where you have populist leaders allied with the religious right, they handle COVID pretty miserably, very similar to the way Trump handled it. And I think that all of this predates Trump, and it's a danger to our country that persists from 30 years ago to today.
I think it's excellent points, and I appreciate the nuance you both bring to it. And part of what Chase says reminds me a little bit of what the governor mentioned, which is there is a traditional or conservative doubt of the powerful. But some of that's being transmuted to say, as if a few scientists or people who write articles, scientific articles, are they the powerful? No, I mean, it's the powerful is the oil companies and some of the other big corporations. And I think real populism would counter that, not bend to it.
It is Thursday, the 26th of August of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Oh, yes. Well, I was speculating about why it is. And then in a abject crisis like we're in terms of the pandemic, as we're also winding down a 20-year war that I got to say, we, with a big W, wait a second, we didn't start it, W did. That's where I was trying to get to. And you can't really pin it all on W because, Cheney was really president and everybody knows it. So, they got us in. We even have like Henry Kissinger now opining after his debacle in Vietnam. Thank you very much. Of course, he didn't start that either, but they inherited it and ran with it. Left it up to, Anyway, I guess that's the way they're going to play it. Mess up the economy. Democrats will put it back together, and then you can wrest it away from them again. And now, just start wars. Put a poison pill in it so that it will all be blamed on the Democratic president who stops it. And then wrest power from them and, become the fascist state that they've always wanted to be. I don't know. If you're going to be that autocratic, do you really even need to have the voting process? I mean, do you need to look for your voters, or do the voters look for you? You know how it goes. Why go through that whole charade? Well, I guess it keeps the little people in line. Oh, he's giving us a choice between this and that. Well, this and that, there's no choice between this and that. Yes, there is. There's an is and an at. Okay. So, while I was opining and visualizing all of the terrible things that Joe has to go through because he's the one that said, hey, look, this is stupid. We're getting out. And apparently all the chaos that is ensuing is pinpointed upon old Joe there. And Gunner the English Bulldog is doing his job, snoozing quite loudly again. Not as loud as it's been, I should say. But anyway, back to the story at hand. So, what will it take to, calm the fires of the media as they just go crazy about all this chaos and why didn't they plan better and oh my God. And I was thinking, after the wall went up, there was this incident called the Berlin Airdrop, in which candy bars were parachuted down into the streets of West but the target was East Berlin. Candy bars. Touted as one of the great aviation feats in aviation history. And it looks like there's 160,000 so far evacuated, airlifted out of Kabul. They say Afghanistan. They got to get to Kabul. They're not going to Kandahar or anywhere else around there. They're going to Kabul. That's why it's so difficult to get the other people, Americans and our friends, because they're not right there in Kabul. But regardless, back to the story at hand. 150 plus, 160,000 in 10 days? And the media just goes, so chaotic. It's chaotic. Okay. While war criminal Eric Prince is profiteering off of it. Oh yeah, $6,500. You can sit on my charter flat. And he doesn't even fill up the plane. Takes out a few. What? You got all that empty space? What are you thinking? This is Dunkirk, buddy. People forget Dunkirk was a success. Okay. People sent all their little launches and slips, and they got it. So Hillary Clinton, without any fanfare. Now, was that by design? The media could point to it and say, my God, she's been ferrying people out of chartered flights and filling up the plane and doing it multiple times as quickly as they can turn it around. And, of course, we know Kevin McCarthy will want to have that investigated. Not Eric Prince. $6,500 a seat. You want to get out of there? Yeah, this is, I don't know. Even Arthur Rimbaud became a gun runner, okay? Let's just make it clear. Yeah, the boy wonder of innocence. And, I don't know. Maybe not so much innocence. Flirt them all? Anyway, a prodigy. And what did he become? A gun runner. You go where the money is, and I guess a certain level of prestige if you run with that kind of group. Jeez. All right. So, we do have more of a show here than we can probably fit in. We'll try. We always might have to hurry up and abbreviate, but, that's how it is sometimes. But at the top, those conspiracy theories, and we all suspected this. We could see it. About vaccines, and is just the climate denial playbook rebooted? I would also say Big Tobacco. The strategy they had in their playbooks worked pretty good for quite a while. Yeah, well, it is all part of a anti-intellectual, anti-science push that's been pretty much pushed into a corner of our body politic. Yes. I'm petting my sous chef, trying to quiet him down. He is snoring loudly. Okay. Well, on the rest of the menu as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, the salon that does. Huge gaps between air quality sensors in the western U.S. have created blind spots in the warning system for wildfire smoke plumes sweeping North America. That's rather wordy. An Oklahoma man was charged in the assault of an AP photographer during the January 6th insurrection. Well, that's rather pithy and to the point. And a sham candidate for the Florida Legislature pleaded guilty to being part of a vote siphoning scheme and will testify against the former Republican state senator who ran it. Oh, another little wordy one. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Canada's ruling Liberals vowed to impose higher taxes on big bank profits to help fund the nation's COVID-19 recovery. That's kind of in between. And the organizer of the annual Hong Kong Tiananmen Square anniversary rally is under investigation by the National Security Police. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link. And the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and thank you, Kelly, for doing so, and so much more. If you would look across the page to the left, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice then the link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and could afford to send those funds our way once a month, boy, that would be so helpful, and I'll tell you why. Because this little powerhouse of resistance has been doing this for quite some time, and we've only been able to do it because of folks like you who, well, If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way, it helps us pay our bills once a month. Thank you very much. And they keep going up. And we've noticed from this long experience of resistance that if you pay your bills, you sometimes can fly under the radar. And then we can continue doing what we do. And what are we doing? Well, in our entertaining way, not just this show. We're talking Netroots Radio here. I mean, you got Tom Hartman, you got Nicole Sandler, you got Brad Friedman, you got K-Grow in the morning, you know, okay, and all the little accoutrements. It's handcrafted, by the way. A human hand puts it all there, not some machine, okay? This is not the robot stations that we have all come to know and love. Handcrafted resistance radio. That's what we do. And we've been doing it for some time, and it's encouraging because folks like you have sent us the equivalent of an espresso-type coffee drink or 2 or 3. And once a month, by the way. And we have been paying our bills, and we have you to thank for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended, oh so many, many, many years ago. Okay, long before Scalia. Jeez, and now we got Alito. How many more schmucks do we get? Well, apparently quite a few, and they can live longer now. Look how long they've been living. That's okay. All right. Well, if you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, back to the matter at hand. Following Netroots Radio on Twitter is so simple. You just go to @Netroots Radio, and Tom takes care of that and a lot more. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter @Cookbook West. No, I'm at Justice Putnam. The show's at Cookbook West. We'll get to that in just a moment. We just run over that one anyway. Follow me on Twitter @Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary, not stories, diary, on Daily Coz about 10 minutes before showtime, and then link that up on Twitter and other social media platforms. I promise. I get it up there, sometimes not on time. But the diary posts 10 minutes before showtime. The show notes and links are very, very important. Yes, they are, because that's where the real reportage is. All righty. Now, if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so @Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Yes, wherever. This first offering here comes out of the Associated Press, and the journalists who have penned it, Matthew Brown and Padamanda Rama, are responsible for this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Huge gaps between air quality sensors in the western U.S. have created blind spots in the warning system for wildfire smoke plumes sweeping North America this summer amid growing concern over potential health impacts to millions of people exposed to the pollution. Government programs to alert the public when smoke pollution becomes unhealthy rely on about 950 permanent monitoring stations and dozens of mobile units that can be deployed around major fires. Those stations are heavily concentrated around major cities on the West Coast and east of the Mississippi River, a patchwork that leaves some people unable to determine local risks from smoke, including in rural areas where air quality can quickly degrade when fires ignite nearby. The problem persists far beyond fire lines because wildfire smoke travels for thousands of miles. I would say thousands and thousands, maybe even thousands and thousands of miles, and loses its telltale odor, yet remains a danger to public health. Particulate matter is particulate matter, as they used to say. You know, a rose is a rose, particulate matter is particulate matter, by any other name, will hurt you just the same. The monitoring gaps underscore what officials and public health experts say is a glaring shortage of resources for a type of pollution growing worse, as climate change brings increasingly long and destructive wildfire seasons to the U.S., West, Southern Europe, and Eastern Russia. Yeah, they're having fires in Siberia. What's up with that? Microscopic particles in wildfire smoke can cause breathing issues and more serious problems for people with chronic health conditions. Long-term effects remain under study, but some researchers estimate that chronic smoke exposure causes about 20,000 premature deaths a year in the U.S. Review of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. An Oklahoma man seen on video pushing an Associated Press photographer over a wall outside the Capitol during the January 6th riot. It's an insurrection, okay? I know some people call it a riot. It was an insurrection, and still is. Has been arrested, authorities said yesterday, Tuesday. Benjamin Scott Berlew, at least he gets 3 names, like the insurrectionist he deserves, of Miami, Oklahoma, is the second person to be charged with attacking photographer John Minchillo, who was documenting the mob of former President Donald Trump supporters that day. Oh, you mean the insurrectionists? Berlew is accused of yelling at, grabbing, dragging, and ultimately pushing Minchillo over a low stone wall on the Capitol grounds. Authorities said Berlew was among several people who attacked Minchillo, who was wearing a helmet-style gas mask and was dragged by another person down the exterior stairs by the lanyard, or by his lanyard with Associated Press lettering. At the bottom of the stairs, Berlew and 3 other people grabbed the photographer, pushed, shoved, and dragged him again, the FBI said. Minchillo later found himself backed up against a stone wall by the attackers. The FBI said Berlew lunged toward the photographer and shoved him over the wall, causing Minchillo to land on his back. Berlew leaned over the wall to witness Minchillo's fall, according to court documents. Berlew is charged with assault in special territorial jurisdiction and committing acts of physical violence on restricted grounds, according to court records released yesterday, Tuesday. Berlew's attorney did not respond to requests to comments on the allegations against his client. Associated Press spokesperson Lauren Easton said it is deeply troubling when journalists are targeted for simply doing their jobs. These charges are an encouraging sign that those who attacked journalists on January 6 will be held accountable. Terry Spencer of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A sham candidate for the Florida Legislature pleaded guilty yesterday, Tuesday, to being part of a vote siphoning scheme in last year's election and will testify against the former Republican state senator who prosecutors say ran the scheme. Alex Rodriguez agreed to testify against former Senator Frank Artiles after pleading guilty in Miami-Dade County to accepting illegal campaign donations and lying on campaign documents. He will receive 3 years probation if he cooperates, including a year of house arrest. He had faced a possible 20-year prison sentence. Oh, you mean he's getting a slap on the wrist? You're telling me that he was part of a illegal election scheme and he's getting a slap on the wrist when there are any number of people in jail right now spending 5 years in jail for voting when they thought they could vote. Former felons thought they had paid their debt to society. Not good enough for them. 5 years more in the slammer. This guy gets a slap on the wrist. Well, I guess it's justice. Prosecutors charged Artiles and Marsh with felony campaign fraud charges, saying he secretly gave more than $44,000 to Rodriguez so that he could run the 2020 election to confuse voters and siphon ballots from then Democratic incumbent Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez. The funds allegedly came from a dark money source. Artiles has pleaded not guilty. You can follow the money until you follow the money to some sort of rich fascist here in America. Then it goes dark. Alex Rodriguez, a 55-year-old auto parts salesman with no political experience, ran as an independent in the three-way race in Miami-Dade County, pulling in 6,000 votes. The race was won by Republican Ileana Garcia by just 32 votes. She is not implicated in the scheme. Now you see what they did. You have the incumbent Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez. They run a fellow by the name of Alex Rodriguez. I am deeply sorry for my actions, and I want to apologize to my family, my loved ones, and my friends, Alex Rodriguez tearfully told the court. I would like to publicly offer a sincere apology to the residents of the Florida District Senate 37, including Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, the people of Miami-Dade County, and the state of Florida, and anyone else who was affected by my actions. They'll throw that guy in jail. But they still won't go after. Well, then maybe they will. We'll see what happens to this state senator. Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle said in a statement that the guilty plea is an important step in the effort to restore honesty to Florida's election process, which has been tarnished too long by almost invisible independent and write-in candidates. Artiles' attorney, Frank Quintero, said that his client denies doing anything illegal. He accused investigators of trying to secretly use Rodriguez as an agent for the state against Artiles. We're looking forward to deposing him, the lawyer said. A Miami Police Department investigator's affidavit details multiple discussions about money between Artiles and Alex Rodriguez, starting with a discussion about why Rodriguez should file to run in the state Senate race. Rodriguez would run as an independent with the same last name as the incumbent candidate in an attempt to confuse voters and siphon votes from the incumbent, the affidavit said. But Alex Rodriguez had money troubles, so he came up with various requests to obtain cash from Artiles, according to the affidavit. At one point, Rodriguez said he could get a used Range Rover for Artiles for about $11,000, and Artiles agreed. It should be noted that the Range Rover did not actually exist. It was a fiction created by Rodriguez to get more of the money that he felt he was owed, the affidavit said. Artiles, who represented a Miami area district, is no stranger to controversy. In 2017, he resigned from the Senate after using racial slurs in a conversation with two black legislators in a Tallahassee bar. Then it was revealed that Artiles used money for his political committee to hire a former Playboy model and Hooters girl as a consultant. Oh my. Before that, Artiles served 3 terms in the State House from a Miami-Dade district, and he was then elected to the Senate before his resignation. He also served in the Marine Corps. Oh, such an officer and a gentleman. All right, let's go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Faster DC Cat, Kill Kill. Well, here we have it. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, the writer of Slither, Scooby-Doo, and Tromeo and Juliet, the writer-director of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, brings to DC the movie-making magic that helped move Marvel to magnificence. And he's done it again. The Suicide Squad is funny, it's visually clever, it sucks you in, it even has a little heart, plus it nods to the theme that governments only care about power at the expense of the little people, and those little people will never be out of danger until they rise up, which I can dig. In structure, Gunn's Suicide Squad is pretty much a standard commando movie. A collection of misfit soldiers goes on a dangerous but necessary mission for an ultimately indifferent command. Things go wrong, and our anti-hero crews start dying off until this genre's equivalents of The Best Girl make it to the last chopper out. However, in a sort of hip ironic wink, Gunn really leans into the dying part. So many people die in Gunn's Suicide Squad in so many ways. Eviscerations, decapitations, immolations, brain succations, you name it, someone probably buys it like that. And almost all of these deaths are played for laughs. Yes, it's the return of our old friend, desensitized theater, which feeds a long-standing suspicion I've had. Marvel loves their characters, while the DCU people hate the intellectual property they're forced to monetize. They think their heroes are lame, one-dimensional, uninteresting boy and girl scouts. Whom do they love? They're villains. That's why they want so badly to have an evil Superman. That's why they shoehorned Harley Quinn, aka DC's Wolverine, into Birds of Prey, and why their best works are sick films like Joker and uncaring death fests like The Suicide Squad. So let's crack jokes about Peacemaker's helmet, about the Polka Dot Man's powers, and about all of the Weasel, because we're too cool for characters who do anything but kill and die. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Microchips are everywhere. They're in our computers and smartphones, of course, but also TVs, thermostats, fridges, washing machines, cars, and that ever-growing constellation of devices embedded with computer brains and internet connectivity is known as the Internet of Things. Lots of other stuff, though, like a carton of milk, doesn't have a microchip or smart sensor. Not to say that it couldn't.
For example, imagine smart labels on food products that could alter their use-by date depending on how they've been handled.
John Biggs is a distinguished engineer at the semiconductor company ARM. He and a team of researchers have now developed a proof-of-concept flexible chip that could be used for applications like outfitting a milk jug with computer smarts, and they say this chip is 12 times more complex than previous attempts. They describe it in a recent issue of the journal Nature. They claim the microprocessor is cheap to build, and it consists of thin film transistors on a substrate of flexible, high-performance plastic rather than rigid silicon.
This is just 40,000 transistors implemented in about 60 square millimeters. And, just to compare that to, for example, the processor that was in the original iPhone back in 2007 is 14,000 times faster. So this is not a very high performance microprocessor, but it's targeted at applications that really don't need that level of performance.
His co-author, Catherine Ramsdale, is Senior Vice President of Technology at Pragmatic Semiconductor. She laid out the vision for how flexible chips like this might be used.
We're talking here about putting electronics on the stuff that you buy in Walmart or Tesco's every week, which just will help with the, as I said, supply chain management, waste management, providing information for real-time use-by dates, healthcare monitoring. It provides a level of computing that's not available currently because it's not economic to do it.
Extending the Internet of Things to the Internet of everything.
Despite that enthusiasm, the two admitted the project was a long way off from commercialization. For one, although the microprocessor is built on a substrate of flexible plastic, it was tested on a flat, not bendy, surface. Manos Tenseris is a professor in flexible electronics at Georgia Tech, who was not involved in the work.
Whenever you refer to some flexible processor or some flexible device or flexible module, one of the first results you must show is that bending this does not affect significantly the performance.
Biggs and Ramsdale said it can be a challenge to conduct tests while chips are bent or flexed, and that they'll be looking into that in future work. Anshel Sag, who covers the semiconductor industry for More Insights and Strategy, pointed out another issue. He says the chips are currently too large and their power consumption is too high to make them viable in terms of cost.
I think the use on a milk jug does make sense, but I think that you also have to account for cost. And unless these can be produced at an extremely low cost, there just won't be any viability for it.
Still, they all pointed out that silicon chips first reached this level of complexity a long time ago, in the 1970s and 80s, and they had to overcome many similar challenges to get where they are today. And John Biggs of the semiconductor company, he's in it for the long game.
What I see is flexible electronics is sort of trailing silicon by about 3 to 4 decades. And so if we see anything like the rapid growth we've seen in silicon over the last 3 to 4 decades, there could be some quite exciting developments in the area of flexible electronics over the next decade or two.
So that Internet of Everything may be coming, it just may take a while to get here. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60 Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
At least since the invention of the wheel, people have fixed, tinkered with, and improved every device they've possessed. It's been a human right. But after several thousand years, suddenly legal clauses are being tucked in purchase agreements saying that today's owners of products must not even peek, much less poke inside, the inner workings of our devices. Makers of anything with a computer chip in it, everything from your car to your toothbrush, have been especially vehement about this, rewriting human nature by outlawing our right to repair. Yes, they assert, you own the thing, but we own the intangible ideas that make it work. So if the product malfunctions, you must return it to us and pay us a premium to repair it. Plus, they prattle, you could hurt yourself trying to do it yourself, so trust us. Bovine excrement, barks Steve Wozniak. Companies inhibit your rights so they can have power, control over everything. Is he some consumer radical? No, Wozniak is the co-founder of Apple, the multi-billion-dollar global Goliath that is the world's biggest producer of consumer electronics. He's appalled that Apple has now become a fierce opponent of self-repair. He says we wouldn't have had an Apple, except that early innovators like him grew up in a very open technology world. From the start, he points out, openness helps spread innovation and consumer demand. So, why stop the self-repair community, he asks? 2 big reasons. Besides letting corporations lock in monopoly profits from the repair industry, it also dissuades customers from bothering with repairs. Just throw the thing away and buy a new one. This is Jim Hightower saying, if you wonder where such massive, deadly levels of pollution by lead, mercury, plastic, etc. come from, look to the gross throwaway ethic of big tech profiteers like Apple. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that Fanny Sellens and Joseph Starzaleski were murdered while standing up for workers' rights. Fanny was born in New Orleans. She married a garment worker in St. Louis. After her husband's death, she became involved in the labor movement in the garment industry in Chicago. The United Mine Workers of America recognized her organizing abilities. As a mine organizer, she worked in the Allegheny Valley in Pennsylvania. Mine operators in the area were known to be strongly opposed to union organizing. Mine managers made open threats against Fanny. Despite these threats, she stayed, and when the miners went on strike, she was there with them on the picket line. 6 weeks into the strike, she was shot and killed by company gunmen. Also murdered was a minor, Joseph Starzaleski. Fanny was just 47 years old. No one was ever convicted for the crimes. The United Mine Workers Journal reported on her death. The article declared 2 fallen picketers had been, quote, shot down in cold blood without provocation and without excuse. The article remembered Fanny as well known throughout all of the region as an angel of mercy among the families of working miners and other laboring men. A disturbing picture of Fanny's bullet-ridden body was taken at the morgue. In the picture, her head is smashed in. That picture was hung up in the union offices across Pennsylvania as a reminder of the cost of the struggle. The United Mine Workers dedicated a memorial to Sellens at her gravesite at Union Cemetery in Arnold, Pennsylvania. It has become an important site for annual Labor Day celebrations. Let us not forget those who came before us so that we may see where we are heading. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 54 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of about 85 again today. Plentiful sunshine throughout the day, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. A few passing clouds overnight with lows in the mid-50s, winds remaining out of the northwest at 5 to 10. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs around 85, winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have increased once again precipitously and now stands at 172,016 infected, and our deceased have also risen again and now stands officially at 192. Grass pollen is rated low outside the window here in Rogue River, though the air quality index is rated moderate at 65 parts per million, and we remain under an active air quality advisory for shifting wind patterns that could bring in smoke, and has. Daytime UV index remains high at 7. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.14 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 75%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 65 and cloudy. Paris is 70 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 84 and sunny. Kyiv is 62 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 80 and fair. Hong Kong is 81 and fair. Tokyo is 84 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 53 and also partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is 88 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny and muggy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. David Lundgren and Nicola Samanather of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. Canada's ruling Liberal Party said on yesterday, I'm sorry if I said Tuesday was yesterday was Wednesday, that if re-elected, it would raise corporate taxes on the most profitable banks and insurers to help pay for the cost of the COVID-19 recovery. The Liberals said they would hike the rate to 18% from 15% on all earnings over 1 billion Canadian dollars, which pans out to be about $793 million US, and vowed to establish a special dividend so that those same institutions contribute more. The measures are expected to generate about $2.5 billion per year Canadian over 4 years, starting in 2022-23. Polls show the Liberals, led by Prime Minister Trudeau, have a slender lead over their Conservative rivals ahead of the September 20 election. The Canadian Bankers Association criticized the news, saying that singling out specific economic sectors for special taxation is a proven detriment to economic growth. The Canadian Banks Index slipped just 0.6% after the announcement, compared with little change in the Toronto stock benchmark, but still ended the day up about 0.5% from Tuesday's close.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Jesse Pang of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The pro-democracy group that organizes Hong Kong's annual June 4 rally to commemorate those who died in the bloody Tiananmen Square crackdown in 1989 is being investigated by national security police on suspicion of collusion with foreign forces. Police sent a letter to the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements in China, requesting information about its membership, finances, and activities by September 7th, according to a copy the group sent to reporters. Similar letters were sent to several individuals and associations that are members of the alliance. Police did not immediately respond to a request for comment because why would they? They're the cops. The letters accuse the alliance of being an agent of foreign forces, meaning they probably got on the internet and talked to a few other reporters. Failure to provide the information by the deadline could result in $100,000 Hong Kong dollar fine and 6 months in jail, the letter said, mainland or in Hong Kong. The group said in July that it had laid off staff members to ensure their safety and that half of its committee members had resigned. It's ridiculous that the police accuse the alliance of being an agent of foreign forces, Alliance Vice Chairman Chow Hang-tung told Reuters. It has nothing to do with any foreign agents, nor has it received any instructions from foreign countries. Alliance leaders Albert Ho and Lee Shuk-yan are already in jail over their roles in anti-government protests that roiled the city in 2019. It also marks the latest blow to the opposition movement, which has come under immense pressure since Beijing imposed a national security law last year that punishes broadly defined crimes, such as collusion with up to life in prison. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.